This is part 2 of a video I did of 2 trips to southeast Oklahoma. I took a trip in February for 5 days to private property. It was where Robert Dodson researched. And then I camped there during July and August. This will be a continuation of my interviews with Tanya Kordek, the owner of the Bigfoot Museum of Oklahoma, Brian Terrell of Red Dirt Cryptid Investigations, and Denny, who's a realtor who has some really interesting stories to share. And in between the interviews, I'll show some random exploring and stuff like that, and also some audio recordings I captured. Have you had a number of times where somebody wanted to get rid of the property because they got freaked out?
Yeah, up on K-Trail, there's one property up there. I didn't sell the property to the people, but they bought the property. And I go to K-Trail a lot because I just live, down at the bottom of the mountain. And I'm going up on the mountain up there, and I can see where they've got this super nice tent that they set up, little campsite. They had their chairs and stuff out there, had the little fire pit built out there. And I said, cool, that Chuck sold that property. And so I'm coming out and everything, and I go back up there a couple of days later, and the tent is all torn down.
Like,
yeah,
ripped up, or?
Yes, the tent's all torn down.
Wow.
So I called Chuck and tell him, say, listen, somebody went up there and tore these folks' tent up. You may want to get a hold of them and let them know. Well, he tells me that they had to flee the property. Okay, they didn't say why they had to flee the property. They just had to flee the property. And the guy that bought the property calls me up a few months later and asked me to sell the property. So I said, well, is there any particular reason you want to sell? He said, no, I don't want to talk about it. He said, I just want to sell. So I sold the property. Well, the guy that I sold the property to, he's been living up there for a little while. He's building him a cabin and stuff on the property. He hasn't told me anything of any kind of experience or anything that he's had. But I'm pretty sure, in my opinion, that they got ran out. And it tore that cabin. I mean, that tent. I'm talking about a super nice tent.
Wow.
Expensive. It just tore it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Check out this beautiful creek that runs through the property. Or river. Creek, river. I've seen bigger called a creek, so I don't know. Got a little hill up there. It's pretty cool with the sun going down. I like to look up on the edge of it and see if I see anything moving. Check that out. Hey there. This guy's beautiful. Make it quiet. What's that I'm hearing? Look at this beautiful deer. Hey guys. Mean you no harm. The deer are just hanging out over there and they keep looking. I think it's a hound dog. That way. I'm just chilling. I looked away a few times to give them a chance. Sometimes when you look away, they take off. I'm thinking they're gonna leave, and they're just chilling. How far are they? If I zoom out at, 150 feet, something like that. I think they are actually closer than this looks, but that's so cool.
At my place, for several days. It was actually like 5 days straight. I would take a buck knife and put it in a tree right beside my chicken coop. I'd get up the next day and go out there to let chickens out, and my knife would be on the ground. And I'd put it back in the tree again. And I did it several times. Well, the last time, where the tree was at, the knife was on the other side of the tree. And then it made me start scratching my head then. Said, well, okay, well, somebody's doing that. So I asked my wife, I asked her, I said, you been out there putting my knife on the ground, taking it out of the tree? And she said, no, I have not. And so I decided to go ahead and put a camera up. And I put a camera up inside the chicken coop, pointing toward the tree. After that, the knife is still in the tree. Nothing has been up there at all. And I bet you that when I take my camera down and I go out there, it's gonna be on the ground again. So I think, you know, that they're very well aware of the cameras. And Mark, me and you were talking earlier. There was a lady, her name was Esther, and she's been a Bigfoot researcher for many, many years, well, probably before Patterson. And she told me that they can hear the oscillators in the electronics. And she said that's how they know the cameras are there. And it makes sense to me. I've got a degree in electronics, and yeah, that certain frequency of those oscillators, some animals can hear that. And so it does make sense to me now. But anyway, I'm gonna take the cameras down and just see if my knife winds up back on the ground again. But you got any questions for me about anything?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about some of the other Sasquatch encounters you've experienced or heard about in the general area on properties.
Yeah, well, you're camping over at Area X right now, and I'm kind of familiar with that. Where my property is, I'm kind of like at the edge of it. Whenever you leave Area X, you're going to go up around Billy Creek. And so right around that area there's a place called Hodgen. And there's the National Forest right there. Well, I sold 80 acres to some people. It's been running right at 2 years now. Whenever I first went in and listed the property to go take pictures of the property, and it's 80 acres, it butts up against the National Forest. And I went in there, and like I said, I like to walk the property so I can kind of get a feel of the property and take pictures and things. Well, I got up in there, and I started just getting this real heaviness feeling about me. And whenever I get that heaviness, in my opinion, I believe that's when they're in the area and they're probably watching. So anyway, took some people out there, showed them the property, and they bought the property. A couple months after that, I get a text from them with some pictures. And she asked me, she said, do you know what this is? And I look at the picture, and I told her, I said, well, you know, it's possible that it might be a bear. And she sends me another picture, and then I look at the picture, and I knew that it wasn't a bear. And so I asked her, I said, can I take the pictures and send them to some Bigfoot researchers? And she said, yeah, go ahead. So I did. I sent it out to several people that's got a very good reputation. And every one of them come back, and they said, yeah, that's definitely a Bigfoot.
Wow.
And so you're going to be in that area this evening, and hopefully, you'll get to see something or hear something while you're out there.
I can tell they haven't been down this in a while. Let's see if I can get video. We are definitely way out in it. Look at that with the mountain right there. going uphill now. And here's the spot. It's basically just like a dead end in the forest. Wow. Little screech owl. That's the way it came from. On the way out now. I think I heard a couple sounds. Nothing crazy though. But maybe a couple like knocks and I don't know what it was, like sort of bangs or something. Kind of cool, but mostly quiet. Check this place out though, huh? We are out in the middle of the forest. In person, I noticed a couple different sounds, and over the recording, only two of them are pretty clear, but I heard a faint vocal, I don't know what it was, a little bit odd, and then in person, I could hear almost like two taps or knocks. I'll label those here because I did get them, the recording, I know where they are, but they're very faint. And then there's sort of a louder, I don't know if you'd call it a knock or a sort of a, I don't know, like somebody hitting a stick against something. But that one really stood out. It was very odd to hear that. Then there was sort of a deep thud and then something hit my car. I got the sense that I might have had a visitor from all that because it was pretty quiet. It had rained, so there were some raindrops, but there were some distinct sounds coming from this one spot out there. So here's the recording. All right. Well, just hung out up here for a little bit. Figured I'd just take a quick look before I head back. Hung out for a little bit and played some music. It's something I like to do. Pretty creepy, huh? I think that's dust. You can see all those little, I don't know. I think it's dust. Some people might say it's orbs. That's a light in the background right there. In the distance, I'm kind of up, so there's a light way out there. Yeah, pretty cool.
Well, you know, Oklahoma has a long history. We've got reports going way back before we were a state, back into the 1850s when trappers, you know, white trappers were coming into this area and trapping. You know, back then they called them hide behinds, and they would talk about these things at their rendezvous when the trappers would all get together and they would discuss these things, you know, and so that they've got that kind of stuff documented going way back. But you know, as the state became a state in 1907 and we kept moving forward, we've had a steady stream of these stories, you know, monster stories that, you know, just like every other place, you know, they started out as any kind of name you could dream up, from, you know, wood boogers, wild men, to, you know, we've even had one in the 70s that was known as the El Reno Chicken Man.
Right, wow.
So we've had all kinds, and You know, I think the El Reno Chicken Man thing happened in the early 70s. It was a series of events that happened over by El Reno, Oklahoma, and up and down the North Canadian River. And it kind of got its reputation because it tended to fancy chickens. That like to eat them, and a couple of farmers would see them getting into their chicken pens, and it was actually a very fascinating story because there was one particular farmer that lived over there just north of El Reno that he cut his hand on the chicken wire pretty badly trying to get into the chicken coop, and he ended up leaving a bloody handprint on the actual chicken coop door, which got ripped off of the chicken coop. Apparently he was a little cranky after he cut himself, but they actually ended up removing that door and taking it to a guy that was head of primatology at the Oklahoma City Zoo at the time, and he looked at the print and said it was definitely from some type of primate, but it was not any primate that he knew of.
Wow.
And this was all in the Oklahoma, the Daily Oklahoman, which is the newspaper for most of the state.
Okay.
And it's very well documented, cases, people seeing them popping up all up and down that whole area. And I don't think it was just one. I think it was a whole series, you know, as a family group, and people were seeing them. And for a very short, brief time, people were talking about it openly. Of course, you know, time goes on and people think you're crazy and people quit talking about it. But the state is known for a lot of different areas, like this particular area we're in. We're in Tallahassee, Oklahoma now, at Tanya Kordek's Bigfoot Museum. And this particular area in the 70s, I think it was 1972 or 74, there was a situation out east of town that became known as the Green Hill Monster. And there was a small group of high school boys and girls that were doing a little partying out this side of town, and they ended up running into some type of Bigfoot creature, scared the hell out of all of them. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol and the county sheriff got involved. They encountered some things too. It's a big old long story, but there was the weird part about it was there was a whole bunch of eyewitnesses, and on top of that one situation where there was, you know, so many eyewitnesses in one particular setting, there was a whole bunch of other little you know, reports that popped up. I interviewed a lady not too terribly long ago named Frances that she had an encounter just west of town, right over there where that was when she was in high school, and the thing jumped on their car and screamed at them, you know, through the windshield.
Wow.
And damaged the guy's car, you know.
Pretty quiet out here. All right, even though it's kind of dry, this creek's flowing pretty decent. And it kind of heads back towards camp, so I think I'm gonna follow the creek for a bit. See what I find on the way.
I was so excited about the encounter that I reached out to other people around there that were moved up there from Texas, and because I thought, wow, everybody must be seeing these. And then I found out that's not the case. And but I started me on a journey trying to find out any kind of information about these beings. The interactions I had were led me to believe they're sentient beings. I do not believe they're animals, and any more than I am. Not that animals are not sentient beings as well. They communicate, they have families, and they're protectors of the forest, I think, and they also engage with humans from time to time. That said, I think that they're also a type of human. They have many tests and studies been done showing that they are a type of human, and I believe those are correct and not flawed studies. There are ongoing studies even now, even in this state, Oklahoma. There is DNA studies going on, and I'm really excited that I have had opportunity to meet some of the scientists involved, and this has been, again, a wonderful journey. And during this time, we've met so many people that have also shared in Bigfoot experiences, from daylight encounters, nighttime encounters, to just hearing the sounds in the woods. They're all around here, and people do hear them and do have these encounters.
Where would the Sasquatch hide? About as far as you can see that way. It's hard to tell way back there. I think those are still mountains. Wow. Wow. I am literally camped somewhere down right in there.
I've seen tracks, several tracks in different places. There's been several since I've been in real estate up here for 10 years, right at 10 years. And I've been on some properties with people, and there's been a few times, that it got really close. There was one property right up above Red Oak, up around Leakwire, and there was 160 acres. I took some folks in on that, and drove my Land Rover in as far as I could go in, and then we hiked the rest of the way in, down in there. And I would say probably about a mile or so in, and we get down to the creeks, and they really love the property, and we're on our way back out. And as we're coming back out, right on our path is a pine tree. And you can see my cup here. So it was broke off about 8 foot up, broke off, and laid across the road. Just fresh break.
Was it there on the way in?
No, it was not there on the way in. And of course, it was nice weather, so there was no storms or anything coming in. And so we get there, and but before we got to that property, I had showed them another property, and I dropped my phone in the creek. So my phone was dead. So I asked her, I said, would you mind taking some pictures of that for me? So we're sitting there, she's sitting there taking pictures, and as she's taking pictures, over here to our right-hand side, down, you couldn't see it, but you could hear it. There was something grunting at us, and it was just kind of moving back and forth through the brush down there. And it was just a really aggressive grunt. And she asked me, she said, "Do you think that's what broke this tree?" And I told her, I said, "Ma'am, I don't know." And by the time I said, "I don't know," she took off. And she ran, left me and her husband there.
Wow.
And he wasn't able to go very fast. And so we just had to just slowly get back to the rover. And right as we got to the rover, I had locked the rover, and she was sitting on top of the rover.
Wow.
And she was really upset, and she told me, "Get me out of here." And so I did. I got her out and never heard nothing from them again.
So they didn't want the...
No. But that was a really close one.
Like 10 feet away right now. Sitting here at my campsite. It's about noon. I noticed it went just about silent out here. Couple of faint bird chirps, but it was way louder like a few minutes ago. Here's a couple vocals from one night. They remind me of whoops. I call them whoop howls because they're sort of like howls or long whoops, I don't know. The spectrogram reminds me a little bit of the sound signature that Thinker Thunker noticed on the Kentucky whoops, and also the ones from the Sierra Sounds that Ron Moorhead recorded. Not sure what these are. They don't sound like the typical coyote calls, and it seems to be just one individual making those. There's a couple other quick vocals. I'm not sure if it's the same individual or somebody replying, but here's that recording with the spectrogram so you can see it too.
But there's a whole series of little events that was happening
Around that time.
around Tallahena, and we still get reports here today. I mean, they're still here. It's just, I think that occasionally we go through spurts where it's okay to talk about this stuff, you know, and I think it kind of travels in waves. You know, if you go up to northeastern Oklahoma, up along the Kansas line, I don't remember exactly what year this was, but same time frame. There was this thing that they called the Noxy monster, and I believe John Green actually came down and did some investigations in those areas too, and did some follow-ups.
Really?
But there was a series of encounters where people were reporting this monster, this big hairy Sasquatch type monster, that they were in all sorts of situations. You know, it was just in that area. Well, the news got a hold of it, and there was a whole bunch of reporters that were glamorizing it and coming out, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they had Bigfoot hunters showing up out of the blue, and they had a problem on their hand, and they had people were trespassing on other people's properties. Some people liked it because there was businesses that were thriving because of it. But these people were traveling around with guns, hanging out the windows of pickup truck, shooting at everything. I think somebody's dog got killed, and I think a 16-year-old boy almost got shot.
Wow.
There was a big situation, and the local sheriff at the time, now this is my opinion, but somehow he came up with a gorilla mask and said that there was a 16-year-old boy that was running around scaring everybody with this gorilla mask. But the rumor around the campfire is they needed this Noxy monster craziness to go away before somebody got hurt. So somebody drove up to Wichita and bought a monkey mask and brought it back, and they threw it on the table and said, "Here's your monster," and then the problem went away.
Wow.
But they still have reports to that in that area all the time. You know,
A hike and noticing a bunch of arches. Look at this thing. Look at that angle. There's quite a few more arched trees and stuff, but that's odd. You can see it's held down by that old log. I see that a lot, where a log that looks 2-3 times the age of the tree or more is holding it down. See some more right there. Oops, did I just zoom in by accident? Yeah. There's one there. One right there. Quite a few. Cool little area. I set out to find a pond that I could see on the map, and there we go. Small one. Probably have a look in a minute around, see if there's any footprints on the edge. There she goes.
So my encounter,
Before Tanya shares her experience, I just want to say thank you so much, Tanya, for sharing such a clearly impactful, traumatic at the time experience that you had. It's really powerful when you can see how experiences like yours with a face-to-face with a Sasquatch have such a massive impact. I appreciate you going back in your memory and sharing with us that really vulnerable, terrifying at the time moment. All right, here's Tanya's encounter.
during a day, I was walking, and I want to tell you about this one, but I was walking in the woods, and I was behind two of my dogs, and we were walking towards one of the big creeks, and as we were getting closer to one of the big creeks, one of my dogs turned around and jumped into my arms. It wasn't barking or growling, but at that same time, I started feeling the hair on the back of my neck go up, and I realized that someone was behind me. I thought it was a man or something, and I, being by myself far from my husband, I really thought that possibly there was like a stalker or something. And so I decided I had to turn around and look at this individual, at least to face him. I didn't have a gun with me or anything. So I made a decision to turn. And when I did, the individual, this part of him went into the tree line, but then he pivoted back out and he stared down at me. And I'm holding my dog in my arms at the time, and your mind goes really fast. I didn't know what I was looking at. I thought, well, could it be my husband dressed in my red hoodie, because I saw a conical shaped head. And but then really fast I realized that I could see a man's chest. Then I realized I thought about my hoodie is a pullover. You should not be seeing the chest. And so then I started thinking maybe I was looking at a man, a hunter dressed in some funny outfit to try to scare me or something. And then, within seconds I realized I'm looking face to face at a Bigfoot or forest person. I had no place in my mind to help me prepare for that. I started losing feeling in my legs. I was going in shock, and I really thought I was going to pass out. This individual was under 30 foot, maybe 20 foot is probably more accurate. I have been looking at measuring to decide in my mind how far he was, but probably 20 foot is more accurate. I'm going to go unplugged and tell what really happened. While he was staring at me, I started to hear a male's voice in my head, and he said, "It's okay, I am the one that's been watching you, I'm the one that's been with you." Well, when he said that, my first thought was, and you're the one that's going to kill me. I have never had any kind of anything to pull from to help me deal with what was happening. So I assumed this is a terrible experience. And while I was thinking about that, thinking I'm going to die, I started remembering all the things that my husband and I had encountered in my family on that property. They were not negative encounters. They gifted our car with flowers inside. Or somebody put a dead squirrel where I was washing dishes. We heard vocals of what appeared to be a couple. At the time, we didn't know. I thought Chinese men flew out from China to hunt in our property, maybe deer or something. I heard huge vocals of what sounded like Chinese, maybe Spanish mixed, maybe native mixed, an unknown language I wasn't familiar with, two of them talking to each other. I assumed it had been maybe Chinese people. I didn't know, it sounded kind of Asian-y. I never thought about a Bigfoot, never crossed my mind. Then I remembered that I heard someone breathing outside my cabin window all the time, and then I was starting to think, well, these were the individuals around us. And as time went on, I finally, I started thinking about all those things. And then when I was with this individual, and he had told me that he had the one been with me, I started to really thought I was going to pass out. And so I know nothing about Bigfoot, so I decided to, thought if I screamed, he might charge me and kill me faster. And then I thought, no, don't scream. And then I started calming myself down and thinking, this is a sentient being. He just communicated to me. And so I thought, he knows my husband's name. And I didn't think I could stand much longer because I was not doing okay. And then I said my husband's name, not loud, not screaming. I just said Chuck, 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 like that, thinking if I passed out and if he was a good guy, he would carry me to my husband. And if he wasn't, he would at least know that I wanted to be with my mate, my husband. And then he didn't grimace, show me his teeth. He didn't growl or scream. He didn't make any sounds to me except what I heard in my head. He didn't raise his fist. He just stared at me for a few more seconds and then turned his head and walked into the woods. And I walked back with my dog in my arms, the dog that didn't bark or growl when we were in that position. I walked back about 2 acres to my husband, and he saw me, and he was in shock because he said, something's not right with you. And I told him what happened. So as time went on, we put together all the stuff that had been happening around us. We heard the screams together. We heard the wood knocks, trees being knocked down. We heard that stuff all the time together. Some of our family members had visited and they had encounters with us. All the kind of encounters. We didn't know anything. But after that experience, it led me to feel that I needed to know what these people were that are in the woods that were not told are real. And so I decided to start looking and reading everything I could, talking to everyone I could, because this was a life-changing event that happened to me. After 5 years, I'd heard too much other people being ridiculed, just like I was, and I thought, I need to create a place where people can come share their Bigfoot experience, and now I'd say cryptid experience, without ridicule. What happens often, and it happened to me after my experience, I had reached out to my friends and family from church in Dallas, and they let me know that I was dealing with demons and I needed to repent and get right with God. That was so traumatic to me because my relationship with God had always been very real, and I had worked myself up to believe that I had a good experience because nothing bad happened. And so that trauma was traumatic, that I saw a guy that we're told aren't real, and then the people treated me so bad that were close to me. Actually, my family was really good to me, but other people were not. And so that's really what prompted this place. So when I come in here, I get to hear people's stories all the time. Sometimes people just come to tell you a 5-minute story and walk away, and they got to share without being ridiculed. Sometimes people will sit here for hours and tell their experiences. So this has been a great adventure. A lot of people have brought us gifts. So like Todd Gatewood from Tulsa, Oklahoma, brought this blow up of Patty's face. It's just beautiful. And of course she has a human type nose, and the individual I saw had a human type nose. They are not gorillas. They are not monkeys. They are like us in so many ways. So I just want to thank everybody that's been involved to help us too, because this is like a really great experience for people to have a place to share and hang out. So that's what this is about, and this is our new adventure, going to Clayton, to a bigger building, so that more people can enjoy and more people can bring their Bigfoot evidence and pictures and different. We have some new displays on hand that are coming that are really going to give people more of the experience that we weren't able to give in this building. So I'm really excited about that.
Pretty fresh one. Got some pretty green leaves there. It's sort of held down by this right next to the pond. Love that. Whoa. There's like a powerful one in the distance. I wish I had gotten the first one. It was kind of like that. So I'm looking at this spectrogram, and there are a couple that are pretty flat. So maybe it means something. I can see this one here. This one here. This one is pretty flat. This one to me was in a different location, and it stood out a bit. In person, it sounded a bit more powerful than the other ones. And then you can see like this is curved and coyote sounds here and here and here. But these ones, these lower ones at the, if you can read it, around 600 hertz is an area also that people talk about, along with the line being flat. I'm not sure if it definitely means something or not, but it's always fun to have a look and see what these sounds look like on a spectrogram. Whoa. Wow. Kind of looking through trees, but the moon is totally orange. How cool is that? It's not really a clear opening that I can see, so it doesn't. I just wanted to capture the orange. A dry creek bed. Following it because it looks like it merges with some other creeks. I want to check that spot out. Some running water in parts of it. And you can also see quite a ways in some areas too, so I'm wondering if I'll see something along the way here. Further up, it's kind of like a pond. Good sized minnows down there, almost the size of fish. That's pretty cool. Big ones.
I've actually got a guy that reached out to me from Bartlesville. Him and his son had an encounter up there, and I haven't even had time to go down and interview him. It's just been the craziest thing, but I'm going to go down. I know I'm going down there in September, so I'm going to get a chance to meet him in person.
Will you possibly do an interview and put it up on your channel?
Yeah, I probably will. Yeah, I've got other interviews that I got to process and do. Usually I'm a little bit better at that, but I've been slacking off this year because I kind of switched jobs, and so I've been a little, up to here with trying to stay ahead of my work. But it is what it is, and you got to pay the bills and you got to take care of business. So, but yeah, let's see. Of course, there's the famous siege of Honobia.
Yep.
Honobia. Don't you start quoting me. You're going to get me in trouble with all these Okies around here. I know that it's not pronounced
Honobia.
Yeah, I know for a fact that is not it, but I've heard some of the locals say Honobia, someone say Honobia. Yep. I think you're supposed to stress the word ho.
Honobia.
I don't know. But I'm not from there, so cut me some slack. But yeah, that whole deal, that was another very well documented thing. That was recent. That was like 2000.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was recent. These guys had these you know, Bigfoots around their area. And then the Bigfoots they're still there, and they had always been down there. But I think they were going through a drought, and there was a real bad drought or something that year, and the Bigfoots were looking for food, and they came up, and these guys were storing, the Humphrey brothers, they were storing, you know, deer meat in the freezer that was out in the shed. And they came out there one day, and the shed had been broken into, and they'd ripped the freezer open, stole a bunch of meat. I heard they kind of went through some phases where they tried to lock the freezer and put a lock on the freezer, but then they ripped that thing off and tore the door up.
Wow.
Then they moved it up to the house, and they set it on the back porch, and that was. Then of course they came up there and started getting into that, and I guess you know, a series of events that basically led to the guy's wife taking the kids and packing up and going to live with her mama. And it was probably the smartest lady around. It was just like, we're getting the hell out of here. And but then it ended up happening that they ended up shooting one in the front yard. They shot a juvenile in the head with a. Some people say it was a 30-30. Some people say it was an SKS. But you know, they shot this one, and then a bigger one came in and collected it, and took off and back in the bushes with it. You know, the weird thing is about that story, and I've always found this to be fascinating, is that all the people and all the locals and everybody that was involved and everybody that is in the know, nobody argues the fact that a Bigfoot died on that property.
Wow.
Nobody. Everybody is just like, yeah, it happened. They argue about whether it should have happened or not. And a lot of people, you know, they want to, you know, get their pitchforks and torches and give the Humphrey brothers a hard time, and you know, and point the finger, and you should have done this or you should have done that. But the truth is, man, I try not to judge them. I wasn't in their position. You know, I mean, it's, I don't know. I wasn't there, and so I'm not gonna judge them on that. And if they thought that that's what they needed to do, and they were probably scared. You know, you say what you want to say, but they were probably scared. So I try not to judge people on stuff like that. I mean, it would have been nice if they wouldn't have had to have killed one. But I do find it interesting that nobody around here even disputes the fact that they did kill one.
Did you hear something? I feel like it was related to that story where they had one hanging in a barn and a lot of people came to look at it. I feel like that was connected to that, but I could be wrong.
Hold on a second, I'm going to have to deal with this.
Daylight barred owl calls. Huh. I don't know if that one has a trill in the end. I don't think so. Interesting. That does. That doesn't. Huh. Jim Kumo Baker said if they don't have a trill, it's not an owl. That's pretty cool. Way deep in the mountains of Oklahoma, southeast Oklahoma. How does this happen? This old, look how rotted that is. It suddenly gets propped up and creates that little arch. Well, I just did a hike way out. It looked like the trail kind of ended by this creek. I ended up in this like vantage point where I'm sort of up above, sort of like a cliff. It's probably at least 20 feet down right there. It's about 7. Probably 2 hours from camp, so it's definitely gonna be dark when I get back. I don't know how soon I'm gonna leave. I'm tempted to sit here for a while as the sun goes down and just listen. It's kind of cool how you can see up there on the mountain, the sun's still like fully lit on that. Well, I am on the way back to camp, just having a look around. But pretty uneventful. I obviously stayed till after dark, and I really haven't heard anything. But that's how it goes. Sometimes nothing happens. It's all good. Had a nice hike. Just heard basically insects, and that's it. Pretty creepy though, huh?
And there's another, north of Sardis Lake, there's 137 acres up there that I had for sale. And I sold it twice. The first time that I sold the property, originally the property was, they put a cabin up there on the property where they poured the cement in the walls. So it's just basically the only part of the cabin that's left up there is the cement walls. Well, the guy that first bought the property the first time, his kids, he asked me if I'd kind of like check in on things from time to time, but his kids were gonna go up there and go camping. So they went up there and went camping. Well, he called me up one evening. He said, can you go up there and help my kids out? The battery's dead on their vehicle and they need a boost. So I'll go up there, go boost them off, get up there and say, hey guys, how y'all doing? They're just frantically loading stuff in the back of their vehicle. They're tearing down camp and just loading. And I said, hey, what's the matter? Y'all see a bear or something? He looked at me, he said, it wasn't no bear. And man, he just put stuff in there. I got him boosted off. As soon as I took my cables off, he slammed the hood and they were gone.
Wow.
They were out of there. And that's the property that I had. The one was hooting at me like a hoot owl. The same property. Okay, well that same property too, I had 50 acres for sale on the north side of it. Well, you had to go through that property to get to the 50 acres. I took a husband and a wife in there one day when we hiked all the way in. It's because it was such a nice property. And we hiked all the way in. We get up to the 50 acres up there. And up on the 50 acres, there's this rock ridge. Big boulders. And you get up on them boulders, and you look out across there, and it's like you can put your finger in the lake. Beautiful. And so he's over there. And me and his wife, we're standing there just talking, and I'm looking over at him, and I see him, he keeps leaning over like this, and he keeps leaning over like this, like he's looking for something. Well, he comes back, and he said, man, he said, y'all see that? And I said, what'd you see? He said, I'm not real sure. He said, but I got over there, he said, I heard something clacking rocks. And he said, I started leaning over to look. And he said, when I looked around over there, he said, there's this big black thing just walked down on the other side. And he said it wasn't on fours, it was walking on 2 legs.
Wow.
And so we got on out. They didn't buy the property. They did buy another property from me later. But yeah, that was the same, I think the same one that was doing hooting at me. Over there in that area, this is Highway 43 coming off of Sardis Lake. Well, Chuck, he's coming in from Durant. He's coming up that way from Stringtown and coming back down 43. And he's coming down 43, and he said one across the road right there in front of him. And he said he was huge. And he said that he was running across the road, and he said he had his arms stretched out, and he was looking at him as he crossed the road. And he said he could see his face with his lights, and he said his head was just so big. And well, that area right there, I'm on my Onyx hunt maps, and I'm pulling up my Onyx hunt maps, and I'm just kind of just looking at the property, the 137 acres on my Onyx, and I got to looking at the trail, and I saw something that kind of looked kind of weird on the trail, and I blowed it up, and there's that Bigfoot on the trail, and I've got a screenshot of it. I took a screenshot of it, but I believe that's the same one. You know, he's huge, big, and Chuck seems to think he's about 12 foot tall. I don't know. I mean, I didn't physically see him, but
Wow.
But yeah, but according to the Onyx hunt map, if you're looking at it, whatever that is on that trail, and you can see him pretty good. I mean, he's casting a shadow and everything. He probably is about 12 foot.
Wow.
Yeah, he's big.
I find the area that I'm coming up to right now kind of interesting because I haven't seen a lot of them except in this one area. There's a number of arches. The reason the light keeps moving is because I'm looking forwards and then trying to keep my head to the side at the same time while I'm moving. See, there's a couple sort of arches right there. I haven't seen a lot of those in other spots around this property. Hopefully I'm not yelling too loud into the mic. I guess you could call that one, maybe. And here's the best part. Killing the light and shutting off power. There we go. There's a creek that runs right along, not very far. You can't hear it, but it is flowing. Maybe you can barely hear it. I'm gonna get the flashlight out and have a better look. A little brighter. There we go. There you go. That's what we got here. What will I do if I see a big set of eyes right here? I don't know. Some of you may have heard of the late Robert Dodson. Did his research around here. I think I mentioned this before, but he had quite the epic encounter where I think he saw eyes a few times, and then he ran after a Sasquatch that he saw pretty close to him. Never do this at home. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I would do that. That is a serious set of kahunas right there. At the same time, I can almost imagine the look on the Sasquatch's face, or just the surprise. Oh man. But maybe they knew him by then. Seems that he was in the same area for quite some time. That's what we're looking at here. I was wondering on the last thing that you recounted, because I spoke briefly with Chuck. I met him over at Twister's. Did he come to you after he had that visual and say something to you?
On the one he saw coming across, yeah, we talk a lot. You know, every time he's had an experience, usually he'll tell me.
He seemed.
About it.
I thought I remember him saying something like, "You were right," or.
Oh yeah, no, that's a different one. He was real skeptical of me because I told him I'd seen them 4 at my place. Well, the 445 acres butts right up against my place. I listed that place. So I wanted him to go in there with me and just ride around on them side by side, because he's always got higher buying clients than what I had at the time. So I wanted him to see the property. So I asked him if he'd go in there with me. So we did. We got side by side and we're going in. And as we're going in, you know, he just kind of, he snickered at me. He said, I believe you saw something. He said, but I don't know that you really saw Bigfoot. I told him, Chuck, I know what I saw. And so we're going in, and as we're going in, all of a sudden, boy, he just stops. And he said, you see that? And I said, what? No. And he said, I just saw 2 big red looking legs, and I thought it was trees. And he said, but then they moved. And I just laughed at him. I said, oh, that's that female, because I knew what color she was.
Wow.
And well, he started just kind of just looking at me. And so we get down to the creek, and I told him, I said, just stop right here. I'm going to go down to the creek, and I'm going to take pictures of the creek. So I'm down there at the creek taking pictures, and I look up, and there's this tree just whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And I holler at Chuck. I said, look behind you, Chuck. And he looked, turned around, and he saw the tree. And I'm running back up, and I got my phone, and I'm trying to get pictures, you know, and see if I can get a picture of her. And I didn't get a picture of her, but boy, she was swaying that tree back and forth, back right behind. She probably wasn't more than 50 foot back in behind him.
Wow.
And she was just whooshing that tree. And well, after that, he believed me, you know, everything I told him on that stuff. And he's Chuck himself. I mean, he's had a lot of experiences, and a lot of the experiences that he had before, he kind of put 2 and 2 together on. I said, yes, that was a Bigfoot.
Hindsight.
Yes, yeah. And you know, he's had experiences, you know, with Mark Hurst, Udell Head, Robert Dodson, all them guys, and of course with me. I mean, we've been out on some properties, me and him together, where we've had some mishaps out there. You know, side by sides breaking down. We had to trek out of the woods. You know, you can hear one, you know, following us, clacking rocks, or just little things like that. Yeah, he's a good guy to talk to when you get a chance to have an interview with him. I mean, yeah.
I'd love to if I can.
Yeah. But yeah, I've had so many experiences up here, and it's not like you expect them to happen. You're not really looking for them to happen. When I'm out on property, my main concern is just trying to get the best pictures I can get on one, or if I've got clients, it's showing them the best parts of the property I can show them. When something happens, it just does. And it doesn't happen all the time, but every now and then it will. And I think there's really no rhyme or reason why it happens. You don't expect it to. You can't say, okay, yeah, we're going to come around this bend up here and there's going to be a Bigfoot. You can't do that. But you don't know when you come around that bend what's going to be around that bend. And so if you're up in this area or something like that, I can take you out to some places, but I can't guarantee you're gonna see nothing or experience anything. But most people that's been up here, they usually do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add about just Southeast Oklahoma in general, or Red River Realty, Twisters?
Well, yeah. I mean, of course, I always want to put a plug in.
Plug away.
You know, we know property very well, and if you do decide you want to come up and see a property or buy a property, yeah, please give me a call. If you want some of the best food in town, come to Twister's Restaurant. Tallahena area, the people are just wonderful here. They treat you like family.
And a Bigfoot Museum right downtown.
And yeah,
too, right?
Tanya at the Bigfoot Museum, she's actually got one of my pictures up there on the wall. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Just great people up here.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that'll do.
Okay.
I appreciate it so much, man.
No problem.
And thanks for thanks for hanging out today and
Yeah.
having lunch over. I ate at Twisters. It was great today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just make sure you come up and say hello to me or Chuck or Twisters. Just tell Summer to make sure she gets your food just right, and she will.
All right. Well, thank you again.
It's my pleasure.
All right. It's pretty cool. Guessing that's a armadillo. There's a tree break right there. It's my last night in Oklahoma. So the movement is that way. I just heard like a little branch snap. It's over here. Pretty eerie looking woods, huh? Whew. But I would bet that that's an armadillo. I think most critters and everything else, when they know someone's around and hear you, they stop, run the other way. And armadillos just keep moving around right in front of you. Spin around and one more time. That's what I think that is, so. I just hear it. Somewhere in this. That's thick. Hear it right there.